just saying, it's very disappointing.
You need
I'm a
some
fan
pimp.
of this
You want?
guy.
Let me get you some pink stuff. I might be able to get you some generic brands. I'll get you some Equate pink stuff.
An
Right?
educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized.
Learn to be active. Is so like the name of the show is How We Got Here and the significance of the courts. So I want to start off with a little brief description of the way the power structure works in the United States. You know, the three branches of government. You know, the point is they supposed to check each other, you know, to keep from one group, you know, one branch of the government being or whatever, and being able to do whatever it wants or whatever. You know, they all the three branches are supposed to work together and balance each other out. So it says the Constitution of the United States divides the federal government into three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. This ensures that no individual or group will have too much power, like, let's say, the president in the executive branch. So, legislative branch, let's look at this right quick. It says this branch is made up of Congress, the Senate and House of Representatives, and special agencies and offices that provide support services to Congress. The legislative branch roles include drafting proposed laws, confirming or rejecting presidential nominations for head of federal agencies, federal judges, and the Supreme Court, having the authority to declare war. So those are supposed to be what the legislative branch is exclusively responsible for. So the executive branch, it says the executive branch key roles include the president is the head of state, leader of the federal government, and commander in chief of the United States Armed Forces. Vice president, the vice president supports the president. If the president is unable to serve, the vice president becomes president. The vice president also provides over the U.S. Senate and breaks ties in Senate votes. The cabinet members serve as advisors to the president. They include the vice president, head of executive departments, and other high ranking government officials. Cabinet members are nominated by the president and must be approved by the Senate. The executive branch is also the executive branch also includes executive departments, independent agencies, and other boards, commissions, and committees. Judicial. The judicial branch includes the Supreme Court and other federal courts. It evaluates laws by interpreting the meaning of laws, applying laws to individual cases, deciding if laws violate the Constitution. So, just an overall little re
Synopsis.
yeah of the way the government is supposed to work, because I mean it's really simple, but sometimes we get lost in this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So let's read this. It says how each branch of government provides checks and balances. The ability of each branch to respond to the actions of the other branch is the system of checks and balances. Each branch of government can change acts of the other branches. The president can veto legislation created by Congress. He or she also nominates heads of federal agencies and high court appointees. Congress confirms or rejects the president's nominees. It can also remove the president from office in exceptional circumstances. The justice of the Supreme Court, nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, can overturn unconstitutional law. So this is how each branch kind of checks each other. Like they they can't do anything completely by themselves. They have to rely on the other branch to get
That's
things
not true.
done.
That's not 100% true.
Well, what I mean is the way the system is supposed to work is another branch has to okay something that one other branch does. It
No.
has to be a
Certain parts of it, but not everything about their job. Like they can't not have full control over those other departments. Like there are certain things like as far as like it's like the approval process of certain people that might that the executive might want to appoint, but as far as like decisions that it's making, like had a discussion not long ago about how the executive orders work, and nobody can contest the executive order. So the president can make moves that nobody can do anything about.
Yeah, but they're temporary for that reason, because they can't be checked. That makes them temporary. They don't go into law, and the next
But
administration can come in and just take those completely out. So they're
no,
always
that's
temporary.
true.
The president can only be in there for 4 years at a time. So those executive orders can have a time limit of 4 years.
True. Or less. But yeah, I mean, so I mean that part is true. So I mean, however, I think the way that you were saying it, now I mean, I don't know what you meant, but as far as how you were saying it, is that each branch has control over the other, being giving it checks and balances. When I mean, if that was fully true, then I think that there's a lot of things that wouldn't be what they are, because
Well, that's the direction I'm going in with this. This is the way it's supposed to work. Each branch should be able to check the other one to keep them from getting too out of control or being controlled by a small group of people, a small group having too much, influence.
I think that we would end up giving too much power to one of the entities at some point, because especially if you are on the ride of ideology with that group that's in higher numbers at the time, whoever the majority group is, and yeah, you'll side with these people and allowing things to happen that should, or more than likely some things that should not happen. And I think that that's also dangerous too. So you can't have full control. Neither one of them should have full control to be, because I mean, like I said, at some point, I mean, look at our government now. Like somebody's going to abuse that power at some point. They're going to always try to, I mean, because we complained when we said that the Republicans wouldn't let Obama do a lot of things. I don't know if it was totally that. I think Obama didn't fully use his powers the way he could, because I mean, maybe he was trying to play nice, but if he felt like there was things that American people should have without any discretion, even if it was temporary, like he should have been had kept his strong stance no matter what. And
Yeah, I feel like he definitely could have done more. He was frustrated a bit, but yeah, he definitely could have done more. And you can see that because the Republican side tends to just, get what they want to get done. Let me read this right here. It says court role and structure. It says federal courts hear cases involving the constitutionality of a law, cases involving the laws and treaties of the U.S. ambassadors and public ministers, disputes between two or more states, admiralty law, also known as maritime law, and bankruptcy cases. Yeah, I know of it as maritime law. I don't know of it as admiralty law. Let me read this. It says
that's the same thing, right?
Right. Yeah, it's the same thing, but I just didn't know other way of saying it. Let me read this. It says the federal judiciary operates separately from the executive and legislative branches, but often works with them as the Constitution requires. Federal laws are passed by Congress and signed by the president. The judicial branch decides the constitutionality of federal laws and resolves other disputes about federal laws. However, judges depend on our government's executive branch to enforce courts' decisions. So it's like the federal laws are passed by the Congress, then signed by the president, and then the judicial branch decides the constitutionality of those. And then it says the judges depend on our government's executive branch to enforce those court decisions. So, you know, that's it going back in the circle, you know. So like the judges make these decisions, and then the executive branch should enforce them. You know, that is how that's supposed to work.
Well, that's kind of a two-headed coin, because we say that I mean, there's situations where, like, if it's really important enough for the judiciary to make a law or approve a certain law, it really is up to Congress, both the House and the Senate, to be able to really, like, I guess, for them to legislate it, to actually, you know, put the pen and paper to law, and not only just put it into law, but to fund it, to be able to make these things come into fruition.
Yeah. So the Congress, the legislature writes the laws, and so how well it's written is how well it's able to be enforced
or funded.
And the courts clarify, you know, what the legislation says, like how it works. Let me read some more. It says, courts decides what really happened and what should be done about it. They decide whether a person committed a crime and what the punishment should be. They also provide a peaceful way to decide private disputes that people can't resolve themselves. Depending on the dispute or crime, some cases end up in the federal courts, and some end up in state courts. So this one right here, where it says they also provide a peaceful way to decide private disputes that people can't resolve on themselves. So this is a good argument for government existing, because people tend to make the argument that the government doesn't do anything. You know, we can just live our lives without the government or whatever. We don't need the government or whatever. So then when you have a dispute between yourself and someone else, and y'all can't come to a resolution, then what do? Y'all just shoot and kill each other or whatever?
Well, listen, because I think this is where the perspective we need to get a bright perspective toward that, because when we look at the government outside of ourselves, that we have the power to make the differences and changes. And, you know, because some of these judges, maybe, you know, we might have to see a day where one of them get, you know, ousted, you know, get indicted, or, you know, what you call I forget the terminology right now. I've said it so many times. I guess I maybe haven't overused it. Yes, that they might have to see an impeachment at some point. I thought we were close to it last year. You know, with all the talks that they were saying against
Clarence Thomas.
Yeah. So, you know, but either way, I think, you know, we do have to make our voice heard more than ever at this point in time, because, like, it's very evident that there's a lot of confusion between all of these, you know, these three different branches. So it's up to us to clean it up, not anybody else, because really they are an extension of us. They are who we allowed to be there to do these jobs. And if they're not doing it right, if they're not, you know, upholding what we consider to be the American way, then
that's kind of where I'm heading. That's the direction I'm going in here. I don't want to jump the gun, but, you know, certain things have happened. And what happens is people have their partisan politics where they just support their guy, they support their team, they support the R, they support the D's, no matter what. the constitutionality of it or the fairness of it or the properness of it. You know, regardless, this is my team and I'm rolling with them. And that's what allows them to do things that they shouldn't be able to do, you know, because the people don't push back because it's their team. It's like, I don't want to say my team is doing something shady or whatever. I don't want to stop them from doing this thing because they're my team and supposedly they're looking out for me or whatever. But they're getting out of hand. They're doing something that's above their power position, and you're allowing it because they're your team, and you don't want to like give the other team, you know,
because
you're going to give the other team opportunities. Yeah.
You're gonna be, you know, you're gonna be considered a traitor if you just, you know, point out truth, and you know, like that's where, like, I know there's a lot of people that I know that they're changing. Some of them are changing, but on the Democratic side, that's one of the reasons why you said, like, it's not as attractive as it used to be, and people quickly and easily. I mean, there's still a bunch of people who are acting as if they don't see it, or maybe they don't. Maybe they really don't see it. But I think that some of the people who I talk to, that, you know, they it's impossible for them to see. I think they're way too smart not to see it. So I still do question, you know, whether they're just going along with it because they've gone so long doing the same thing and they just have trouble changing. And like I said, I see it because I've lived it. I felt like I remember my transition. So it's kind of hard for me.
People not pushing back is how we get to this point where a minority, an extreme minority, can have the power that they have right now today to get the things done that they want to get done, even though the majority of the people in the United States don't agree with these things.
Well, see, and my biggest problem with the whole situation is that, like, I really feel like people have gotten afraid to dream, like really believe, or, like, you know, have the dream of actually having a fair society, and they just given up. Like, they're like, totally.
I think that's true. You know, I think a lot of us have given up, that things are never gonna, you know, improve. They're never gonna be fair. It's never. The corruption is too rampant. There's nothing you can do about it. You just look out for your friends and family and make as much money as you can and stay out the way. I don't think a lot of people have that.
Until we end up in slavery again.
I know. I mean, it's gonna keep on going, and at some point, it's gonna land in your lap. So you have to fight, even if it does seem impossible.